He is the head of the Department of Cardiology, GB Pant Hospital, New Delhi. Dr. Trian, please. President, in the interesting case.
Well, is my screen shared? Is my screen shared?
No, no, no. Yes.
Shared?
No. Missed out again. Dr. Sarkar, Kunal Sarkar, welcome. Dr.
Yes, sir, the
Shilpa,
screen is
welcome.
shared. Kindly open the presentation and then go ahead.
Screen is shared?
Open the presentation, sir.
Is the screen shared?
Yeah,
So,
go ahead. Go ahead. Make
is
it
the screen
slideshow.
shared?
Yes.
Yes,
okay.
make it a slideshow.
Actually, I lost out. I really don't know as to what was the communication gap. So, do I talk about the topic given or I show a case? Let me know. I have both of them with me. Dr. Panja, you told me to present a case. So, I have a case.
Hey, this
And
one.
as
This
well,
one.
in the morning, I came to the lab to talk about selection of the stent. Let me know what I have to speak now.
Selection of the stent, sir. Selection of the stent.
Okay.
Make it a
You want
slideshow.
selection of the stent? Okay, let's start that. Well, if you want to really select a stent, this of course largely will depend upon as to what is there with you. Do you have everything with you? And if you look at the lab, some of the labs will have just a small box, which will carry all kinds of catheters and some stents, and whereas other labs will have almost plenty of many stocks of these stents. So those who have big stocks of all these stents might have an issue as to which one to select, but those who have a small stock, I don't think it's a big issue with them. But let me just discuss as to, if we talk about a stent, it is just not a stent, it's a stent delivery system. And if you look at the system consists of a balloon catheter, which has a balloon, which could be compliant or a non-compliant, thin or a thick, and as to where precisely the stent is mounted. Is it close to the marker, or it's away from the marker, which will be very, very important to precisely locate the stent, especially if you're doing an hospital stenting. And we all know that these stents have a different design. They could be closed and open cell design. And we know that if you have an open cell design, it can give you an access to the side branch with a wider cell. And we also know that if you have a open cell design, it will conform very well. But we know that one side, the concave side, the too much of crowding, so too much of drug will be delivered, while on the convex side, there will be spaces from where the tissues will collapse, even though you have a good conformability. On the contrary, if you have a closed cell design, we know we have a good scaffolding, good radial force, but getting into the side branch may be an issue. So we all know about these things. But if I look at the stent as a whole, now, since I have to select, well, I look at it, it's a metal. What metal? We still have something like biometrics, which is stainless steel. We have alloys, which are like cobalt chromium, and it could be even a more visible, like platinum chromium, which may be desirable in some situation where the fluoro is not very good, or you're trying to deliver a stent within multiple stents, which are already diffusely resteno. So now you want to put another stent, you want to really see as to where the stent is, and some new another alloys are also there. Then if you have to look at the design, you have a stent strut, and the struts could be having different shapes and different thicknesses. They have hoops and crowns, and the crowns, their numbers could also be changing. Their connectors, the connectors numbers can change. They can be peak to peak or peak to trough. And we have a huge series of dedicated bifurcation stents, starting from Access to the Triton to Capella and so on. So, and then if you talk about the polymer, you may or may not have a polymer, and if the polymer is there, it may be permanent degradable polymer or a totally absorbable polymer. And you could have a drug which previously used to be paclitaxel, which was initially too much touted for diabetes, and Dr. Call has conducted Tuxedo, where they've shown that probably paclitaxel is not so much required. So now we rely more on Limus. And out of the different Limuses, we know that Avro has done much better, but we still have other Limuses and many others. So huge lot of variations. And now the topic given to me is for the lesions. We know it could be aorta austere lesion, and it could be even a bifurcation austere lesion, could be calcification, diffuse, thrombus, small vessel or a large vessel, left main, tortuous, CTO, bifurcation, and SVG. And if you want to ask me to talk about science, then I'll say just for the aorta austere lesions, you will have so many possibilities. You will have equal number of possibilities for calcific, diffuse, and then if you combine, like If you have a left main, it can have a left main ostium as well as bifurcation lesion. So the number of possibilities where these stents, if you want to really test them as a double-blind trial, I think you will have to have thousands of possibilities. And I'm sure you are not going to have any trial in future. You're not going to have a trial. See, your patient wants what? Patient says that you give me a stent which can prevent a heart attack and so that I can live longer. But let me tell you, the devil lies in the detail. Dr. Yadav very well discussed. Now, there was a trial by the name of NOS stent, which I think was probably one of the largest randomized trial of the stent. About close to 10,000 patients were studied. And let me tell you, everolimus and zoltrolimus, not the paclitaxel and tacrolimus, everolimus and zoltrolimus in vast majority of the cases. And once you compare them and look for what the patient wanted, that he doesn't want a heart attack, he doesn't want to die. For that, there's no difference. Both the stents, whether they are drug-eluting stents or the best of the variety or bare metal stents, they perform the same. And even you look at 16 and 17.1%, that means hardly any difference. The difference, of course, was there. That was in repeat revascularization. And even if you look at that, 19.8 versus 16.5, hardly any difference. You needed 30 patients to receive a drug-eluting stent to prevent one redo. And I think if you discuss all these things with your patient, I'm sure all these things will lie flat. You will have a lot of people, a lot of companies coming up with all different small trials and trying to show that in so many cases my stent was better. And of course, they even try to influence some of us in the cath lab, which of course is sometimes changing our decision as to what we should put. But if you look at the real science, I'll say in the terms of real science, we do not have a large real scientific data or a robust data to speak in favor or against one or other. And I will say that what really matters is the size out of the stents. And size is to select the size, for which I think angio may be often inferior. You might have to look beyond the lumen by intravascular imaging, which can tell you as to what size you should select. But finally, I think one more important thing, especially for a large vessel, for small vessel, we know that we can have a thin struts and we can go ahead with small, and they are also not so important. Dealing with some small branches or terminal vessels, I don't think it really matters to the patient. But large vessels, especially left main, I think size matters. And often many of us feel that, well, we can, rather than putting a 3.5 millimeter Xience, we'll put a 4 millimeter Xience. We really do not realize that Xience, whether it's 3.5, 4, or you dilate it with a 4.5 or whatever, it's just one stent. Xience are just two stents, 6 and 9 crowns. One stent which is used for vessels which are 3 millimeter or less, you put it on different balloons, it becomes small stents. And another stent with 9 crowns, you put it on a larger balloon, it becomes a bigger stent. So if you try to overstretch a stent, and that you'll have to do it in a left main, especially if the left main is anything larger than 4.5 or 5. What will happen is, let me just give an example of element which you can very easily see fluoroscopically. If you overexpand the stent, the struts will look like this, the cell will look like this. This is something very much overstretched. And what will you find? These cells will become much bigger in size. There will be large gaps and no drugs there. And even these struts where they are there, they are supposed to deliver a drug. Their density is less because the crowns are not like this, they are straightened, so less density per unit area of the vessel. Also, many times you will get a lot of cracking of the polymer. So what they are supposed to do, I will not be doing. And finally, what will happen is you are not able to get a good scaffold, good drug delivery, and stent will fail. And same, of course, I was talking about Xience, 6 crown and 9 crown. See, these are the crowns, 1 crown, 2 crowns. So if there are 6 in number in a circle, there are less number of crowns. If there are 9 in circle, there are more crowns. If there are more crowns, you can still possibly stretch this stent much better or much larger than a 6 crown stent. Now, this is a flavor of a 6 crown stent, which is, we know that most of the time we try to size the stent according to the distal vessel. We size with the circumflex and put a stent and overstretched it, look at how it looks like. Vis-a-vis, we sized with the LED here and we took the Xience with a 9 crown. If you look at this part of the stent and compare it with this part of the stent, both are Xience. This is 6 crown, this is 9 crown. Here the scaffolding is much poor compared to the scaffolding here. Now this is just trying to tell you that overstretching should possibly be avoided, because otherwise you're likely to not get into good results. Now the solution is that the companies are coming with dedicated stents which are meant to to be deployed in larger vessels. Say, for example, you have a Resolute 5 and you have Synergy, of course, which can go to 5. If you look, these stents can go up to 575. And if you go up to 575, they put still good scaffold. But mind it, if you're putting a Synergy stent, then you are running a big risk of foreshortening. You deployed a long stent, Synergy stent from LM ostium to a distal LAD or circumflex. Now, as you try to overdilate, what will happen is you selected a stent according to the distal diameter and you overstretch. As you overdilate and overstretch it, the stent will foreshorten. It is possible it start foreshortening from the proximal area where the diameter is larger. So it will lose the ostium. So you have to be cognizant of the fact. One more thing. See, stents, once you overdilate, general feeling is that if you overdilate the stent will lose its strength. No, it is reverse. If you overdilate a stent, it becomes like a ring. Rings become more stiff. It tries to give more strength. Not that overstretching will make a stent weak. No, the stent will become more strong. However, this stent will become stiff. And what will happen is if the stent is stiff, over a period of time, it will get fatigued and is likely to get into fracture. So if your stent fractures maybe 5 or 10 days or maybe a couple of weeks down the line, then I think it loses the real purpose because it has to stay for a longer period of time and also the polymer and the drug has to stay there to work around. Now, as far as selection of the stent is concerned, I'll say that as I was talking about the size, if you're dealing with a left main, especially large left main, let's say 5+ kind of a left main, then it is preferable not to size a stent according to the distal vessel, which is the LAD or circumflex as a branch in this case. So you size it according to the proximal vessel. Now, anybody says if you size it according to proximal vessel and if you deploy a stent, you are likely to run into dissection of the LAD or L6. The simple trick is that you deploy the stent at the lowest possible pressures. 2, 3, 4, wherever you find that the stent has started to go up, even if some dumbbell is left there, I think you just stop there. Deflate and pull the balloon proximally so that you're not distally into the vessel. Now this, you can pull the balloon proximally so that you are well within the stent. And now you can go up with the balloon. Once you have gone up with the balloon and subsequently you can do the side branch dilatation, kissing and all. So this is how you can come out with a result like this. So my humble submission is that for selecting a stent for different lesions, there are different stents and there is a huge lot of bifurcation dedicated stents which it went off. And other than that, many of the companies will try to publish their data. Usually it is not a very large data, small data, and they will try to influence you. To the best of my mind, I think the size is most important. If you size according to the vessel and you take a proper size, especially in very large vessels, I think that is the end all of the story. And beyond that, probably you don't need too many things. The rest of the things I think will be decided largely by costs. Like, say, for example, BMS will not go off. Like BRS or the dissolvable stent or this from Abbott, which went off because it did more heart attack, it did more harm and lost more lives. So it went off from the shelf. But BMS, I don't think is going to go off the shelf as long as the cost difference is there, and also maybe in a small percentage of patients where there is a big issue about the bleeding. So I think I conclude my talk by stressing more on the size of the vessel, first to choose and then finally to achieve.
Thank you very much, Dr. Trehan. I am sorry to disturb, that is, these lectures not acceptable 3 speakers. Then I will hand over to you. Thank you very much. Excellent presentation. Now requesting the chairperson as moderator to continue the discussion. Couple of question and answer session now. Dr. Kunal Sarkar, Dr. Ekta Agarwal, Thomas Alexander, Akhtar Khan, all the chairperson, please.
I have a question to Dr. Trehan.
Yes, please.
And what I like and what I also believe what he preaches and follows, the only one thing which matter is a proper sizing of the stent. And I think everywhere he emphasized one thing. It is not the cell structure or any drug or any company which is important. It is important how properly sized the stent. And I think, again, I think, sir, you have reinforced at least 3 or 4 times this important message, and this message to go to everywhere, that sizing this stent is the most important thing to avoid restenosis.
Dr. Panja, can I make a comment? Yes.
Yes, please.
Yeah, your administrator is not allowing me to start my video, so I will remain unseen. But if I'm heard, I think that's enough. So I think I really enjoyed Dr. Yadav's talk. I think so wonderful. When you outlined your ethics, and just to make myself otherwise identified that I happen to be a surgeon. So going through all these pictures of stents and stent cases has been pretty painful for my ST segments in the last few minutes. I mean, that notwithstanding, that was a very wonderful talk. And just to put it in some perspective, ever since that, ever since with the advent of big pharma in medicine, this has been the advancement, innovations, both in pharmacology and in devices, has really been inversely proportional to the ethical quotient of medicine, and that frictional relationship still remains. And I spoke about this in another cardiological forum recently, that a concept is now emerging, what is called data fragility, that much of the data that we are putting forward as scientific evidence, and especially that type of data, which is a kind of colored and colluded with pharmaceutical interests, company interests, the big pharma interests, is being considered to be very fragile data, and much of it might not stand the test of time. So I think all the issues that you have pointed out is very valid. So far the fingers were being pointed at interventional cardiology. A lot of the finger pointing happened towards oncology. And not to be left alone, even immunology is coming to that field right now, because those of you who are following the COVID press will know that there is hectic share market transactions happening over Moderna in the last 5 to 6 days in US. So ethics and pharmacology, devices and medicines remains a very key question. And Dr. Yadav, I think we are grateful to you for the things you have pointed out very candidly. But this question of questioning the concepts like off-label use, the strength of data, the authenticity and how much of what we do has been within the guideline framework and mandate needs to trouble us a little bit more in present and future. But I really admired your presentation. Thank you, and thank you, Dr. Panja, for the opportunity.
Okay, thank you, Professor. Any other comment from other chairman, please?
Other persons, other chairpersons, Dr. Sameer is there?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah. Sameer, my question, I'm Dr. Hajar, I'm a cardiologist. What will be the AUC or C statistics of your single lead ECG for the diagnosis of ST elevation MI in the community?
A little uncertain at the moment. You're able to hear me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Okay. Because for whatever reason, my video has been disconnected. I cannot connect the video. It's being controlled by the host.
Please continue to talk, sir.
At the moment, we have not been able to calculate the AUC because of various factors beyond the intent at the moment. And my personal prediction is it's going to be around 94 to 95. That's my thought, but I'm not 100% sure at the moment. The hardest part in this has been to identify which is the single lead which is the best. Most of the initial data was suggesting AVR, but eventually it is V2, which I think is the highest accuracy. And the next area is how do you make it the most potent? We initially are easily able to connect it to the Apple Watch, where you put the hand on the crown and all you need is a 3-second recording, not a 30-second. But the best area which we are thinking is a ring, which you can put exactly on the V2 kind of a location and get a pretty accurate diagnosis.
Right. Any other chairperson wants to make a comment here? Dr. Jadhav, Leonid, this article in 2013 in the Science of Public Science, Library of Public Science, he has said that most of the discovery or news article or a publication, be it Lancet, be it NEJM, this is term called science-wise false discovery, SWFD, which is to the tune of 90%. So only 10% of the science is correct and 90% is incorrect. So do you have any comment on that? Please unmute yourself, sir.
Absolutely true. If you go, last 2 editor of NAGM has officially told this. What we are publishing, I do not accept those things. The data is forced, all are company sponsored, and we are pressurized to publish those articles. If you go to net, last 2 or 3 NAGM editors after retirement, they have written these all things. And the second important thing, as Dr. Kunal has very correctly said, it's not a, I will not say it's a data forgery. It is a data propaganda. Now, in a recent trial, DEFA heart failure trial, if you see, they are promoting that this drug should be given in non-diabetic also. Now, if you go to their analysis, they have divided this into 2 parts, heart failure patient and diabetic and non-diabetic. And non-diabetic, they have included patients who are pre-diabetic. And their difference is not significant. If you go to the data, p-value is non-significant. So if you see, but what is being emphasized, so I don't say it's data forgery, I always say it's a data propaganda. So you are absolutely correct. If you go to NAGM and anybody can type this, you will get across.
Is this SWFD, Rakesh, is this SWFD is applicable for surgeons also?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely is applicable to everybody. And rather, this most data propaganda is going in oncology. The cardiology is going much behind now. So absolutely true. It is absolutely true what you are telling.
Samir, any comment from US? Any comment from US as far as the SWFD is concerned?
What Dr. Yadav has mentioned is being recognized more and more. And you have to realize that if it can reach New England Journal and Lancet, it has only increased our awareness how severe the problem is. There is going to be no easy solution here. I think it is on the solution where we need to be thinking. But the solution starts first with identification of the problem, and we know there is a problem. Particularly with this Abbott part where the controversy started with the left main comparison, extremely troubling things. Now, what do I think is the real message here? The real message is exactly that what Dr. Yadav has mentioned. He's heading the Indian Heart Journal. I think, first of all, we should be absolutely certain that our house is absolutely clean. We can set an example for the world. And so let the issue start from there. Absolutely no conflict either with any messing around from pharmaceutical or device manufacturers, and ensuring that all the editors and the sub-editors are completely understanding that conflict of interest, probably to me, a lack of conflict of interest today and having an understanding of ethics is as important as the intellectual contribution of the editors.
Very well said.
Okay, very well said. There may be conflict of interest. Dr. Jadhav, Dr. Trehan, any last comments, sir, before we conclude the session?
I think I'll echo with what Dr. Samir said. I think it is pretty important that we have to set our house right first. And you start doing things right, and I think they will reflect gradually. It is also a kind of infection which can spread. It could be a good infection. It will take a little bit of more effort than usual, but I think it is pretty important, because I usually used to call it a murder of science. If you do a kind of data manipulation, we should be very straightforward. And
you need a lot of introspections before you conclude anything, be it guideline, be it science, be it technology, be it device, be it surgery also. Dr. Dilip, thank you, gentlemen, for excellent presentation. Dr. Mehta, Dr. Gupta, Dr. Jadhav, Dr. Trehan, and Sarkar, and all the participants. Thank you very much. Dr. Dilip, go ahead to the next presentation.
Thank you.
So we move on to the next presentation. This will be a case-based presentation, and may I request Dr. Panja to invite the first presenter and introduce him. The first presenter is Dr. P.K. Sahu.
Please call the moderator and chairpersons.
Please read out the names, Dilip.
Chair
Prakash, yeah.
K.K. Sethi and Dr. Anil Dhal and Dr. J. Balachandar and Dr. Muhammad Ghulam Azam. I think Dr. Balachandar is online. And panelists are Dr. Saurav Mukherjee, Dr. Bhavani Chatterjee, Dr. Amit Roy, Dr. R.H. Sundar, and also Dr. Sundar is also online, and Dr. Sumanta Chatterjee, and Dr. Sobhusachi Pal, and Dr. Arindam Mitra.
First speaker, Dr. P.K. Shah.
Good evening, everybody. Can I share my screen?
Please tell